Welcome to another episode of the Miami Real Estate Show. In today's interview, I have the pleasure to talk to two of the most knowledgeable experts about the Miami real estate market. As a matter of fact, if I had to pick a list or do a list of the top 5 experts about the Miami real estate market, these two gentlemen will definitely make the list. They are Jorge Studnicky and Phillip Spiegelman, founders and owners of ISG, International Sales Group. They're also the makers of the Miami Report, a must-read for every single real estate professional in South Florida. It is also a great report for every potential buyer, person that is thinking about buying a property in Miami. They've worked and represented the big developers like Jorge Perez from the Relator Group, Kevin Maloney from PMG, and Donald Trump, among others. They have represented and they are responsible for more than $8 billion in sales only within the last 7 years. They also talked during the interview about the current state of the real estate market in Miami, the reality of what we're going through and where we're headed. They also talk about their combined experience of selling, more than 50 years of combined experience in selling. Craig put it this way, and I love when he talks about selling and talking to a client. You must make sure, Orlando, that when you're talking to a client, you have two connections. You create the logical connection and the emotional connection. That way, you can really make that sale. Amazing insights we're going to get from this interview and these two experts of the Miami real estate market. I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did and that you learn as much as I did. So without further ado, I leave you with Jorge Studnicky and Phillip Spiegelman from the ISG. Make it a very productive day.
This segment of the program is brought to you by Downtown Doral. Envisioned by the renowned developer Armando Codina, Downtown Doral is located next to the world-famous Trump National Golf Course. It will consist of 10 residential towers, designed by renowned architects like Seeker Suarez, Carlos Ott, and Arquitectonica. It will have first-class shops, restaurants, and a charter school. The first tower is already in construction and to be delivered in the first quarter of 2016. Its second tower has an anticipated delivery in mid-2016. For more information, visit downtowndoral.com or call 305-392-5800. That is 305-392-5800.
It's with great pleasure that I introduce you to one of or two of my good friends in the industry. I know them by the first name. To me, of course, being Hispanic, it's a little bit difficult to pronounce last names, but Jorge Studnicky.
Close enough.
Close enough. And Phillip Spiegelman, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for understanding my accent. So, again, it's a pleasure to have you here at the Top Producer Miami interviews. Your insights in the industry are amazing. And I want to start the interview by asking you, how do you guys met and when was that? How do you guys meet?
Well, some 24 years ago,
Okay.
we met on a golf course, which is one of our great pleasures that we enjoy doing together. And we found over time that we had common interest in not only real estate, but that we had the beginnings of an idea that we would like to have a ISG type company. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be ISG, but we wanted a sales and marketing company to service the development industry. We saw that as a business that we were both comfortable with. I came out of the development industry and clearly wanted to be a service provider, no longer a developer. And my dear partner never wanted to be a developer, which made him smarter than me for
He wanted to be a golfer.
Yes. Wasn't quite good enough for that.
Okay.
But I did like selling real estate.
But we had a lot to offer. We really did. We found that we had not just common interest, but we had a lot of insight and knowledge about the industry that we thought we could provide in a fee-based arrangement that could be the beginnings of a good company. It took us about 3 years to put the idea together, and we were very fortunate. We came out of the box with business right away. Frankly, I think we had 5 or 6 jobs going almost simultaneously, which put us right on the map very quickly. And the rest for us has been
so it's been more than 20 years, and yes. I know you've worked with many developers, not only in South Florida but in different countries. Some of them are developers,
Panama,
right? Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico, Las Vegas. I consider another country.
Okay. Why is that? Why?
It's like no other place I've ever done business.
Fair enough. Yes.
Do you guys have any mentor getting started in the business? Somebody you really learned from?
Well, I had one.
Craig?
I think everybody in business has several. You know, I don't think you just have one. There's one I'd like to mention, a fellow named Tom Daly. He was partners with Jorge Perez of Related for nearly 15 years.
Many of the
Icon Brickle,
right.
Everything you see on South Beach, Marana Grand, Icon South Beach, Apogee, right. The city of Sunny Isles.
Oceans 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
The triplets, the 3 Trump buildings that many people call the triplets. They were all co-developed with Tom Daly and George, and many more. Tom passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately, very young. He was only 67. But he was, anyone who knew Tom in the real estate business would say he was a genius. Never spent a day in college. He was gifted with a very intuitive and very facile mind. From land acquisition to understanding construction costs to complete understanding of sales and marketing, and even a forward-thinking, neuroses of market cycles, because that's the biggest risk developers face.
Exactly.
There was nobody who was as tight on all those subjects like Tom. And yes, he mentored me on all of those topics. It was hard to keep up with.
How about you?
My former father-in-law brought me into the industry back in 1969, and he was one of the early creators of the condominium business here in South Florida. Large-scale projects. I mean, I got really an education from the ground up, from sales, marketing, construction, finance, the whole thing, and it absolutely inspired me to want to do it for the rest of my life. I couldn't imagine doing anything different.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from New York.
New York, from
New Jersey.
New Jersey, right? Right. And how many years in South Florida?
For me now, it's almost 45 years.
Because it brings me to the following topic. You guys developed the ISG, the name of the company, of course, report. And I don't think there's any agent in Miami that is seriously invested in this business that doesn't know about the ISG report. And,
happy to hear that.
Yeah, well, it's the truth. So I want your intake on the ISG report, especially in how do you create that and why? First of all, why you created the ISG report and what you learned from it.
Well, it's thanks, Orlando. It's nice to hear everybody actually reads it. We actually call it the Miami report. It's the ISG Miami report because we know that that's something that would be a very catchy title to first of all, real estate brokers. That's who we first when we created the Miami report. It was for that specific audience. We created it in the middle of 2009. Remember, it was a falling knife environment, meaning prices were dropping. And the salespeople can't ever sell without a sense of urgency. Everybody in sales understands that. So Phillip and I have a problem. We have to pay the rent. We have to make payroll. We need commission income. How do we start getting the commission income going again when there's a zero feeling of urgency out there? Well, we have to give the salespeople a reason to feel urgency. Once again, in a falling knife environment, that is tricky. No one ever trained Phillip or Craig for that. No one ever trained anybody for the world we were in. It wasn't just a bubble that burst in the condo market in Miami. This was a worldwide financial failure in every sector of the economy. So how is it that the condos in Miami were going to come out of this okay? In fact, better than ever. Well, that was the pain, and we had a pain.
And by the way, there were clients of ours and other business associates that were saying, we're in for a 15-year nuclear winter. It's just going to be devastation for as far out as you can see. Wasn't a very inspiring concept, but that's the way it was being positioned to us by people we respected.
So we said, Rubbish. Let's go out there and find out just how bad it is. My late father used to always say, the dark clouds in your life are usually much farther away than they appear.
Okay.
So let's go find out. Let's go count. Literally count. Old arithmetic. How many condos are really for sale in Miami? And we went out building by building by building. We burned a lot of shoe leather. We used third-party research sources from the...
Which you still use, right?
Oh, all the time.
Right.
We have to use them because it's good research material.
Right.
Even it's the Downtown Development Authority research stuff. But I will tell you, it's not as accurate as our stuff because we're right on the front lines in real time all the time. In real time, all the time. And the information is constantly changing. So bottom line is, what we were able to do was give our salespeople a real count of what was out there. And in every case, when Phillip and I would ask, whether it was an ISG sales agent,
Sitting at our conference table.
every time when we would ask them, how many condos do you think are for sale? Just say in Brickell and downtown. They always guessed high, but by a lot.
By a lot.
All right.
Real estate developers, who are the experts of the game, would sit in our conference room, and Phillip would usually take the lead. It was great. And he would ask these developers the same question. Let me ask you a question. In downtown Miami and Brickell alone, how many distressed condos do you think are on the market right now? Remember, this is the middle of 2009. They never guessed, never less than 25,000 units. The answer was 10.
10,000 units.
10,000 units. They were way off by like 150%. By a year later, by the summer of 2010, that number was down to like 7,500, and it was dropping because Latin markets were coming into Miami. Some Canadians, particularly Toronto, were coming into Miami, and they were, because those markets were expanding while our market, in terms of the real estate values, while our markets were contracting. The Miami report gets into the reasons why that was going on.
And by the way, the phrase being able to buy below replacement cost was created to position the value and the urgency at the same time.
So Phillip just said it. We created an urgent story.
Okay.
And our salespeople went from feeling like they were walking in a funeral home to feeling like they had the winning lotto ticket almost. Because we simply gave them information.
Knowledge.
Which is knowledge.
Right.
And
And an opportunity for instant income.
Right.
Because it's right there. You can sell it, you can close it, you can get paid.
Right.
No waiting.
So then they would say, can we share this with our brokers? And we said, yeah, sure. So would you translate it into Espanol and Portuguese? Yeah, sure. And next thing we said, hey, maybe we should use this ourselves as a listing tool for developers to consider ISG. And it worked. Well, next thing you know, we're publishing the ISG Miami report now twice a year, every year. And we have developers, whether it's Jorge Perez related, Steve Owens from Swire,
Richard Lefrak from New York.
from Lefrak,
Prominent people. Barry
Sternlich from Starwood, Kevin Maloney from PMG.
Right.
We send this out and we get these amazing emails. Short and sweet, guys. Best I've ever seen. Well done. You've outdone yourselves.
Bankers.
Okay.
Bankers that are continually asking Craig and I, and some of them actually know to go right to the research department, looking for, when can I get the next information? Do you have anything?
I'm
more?
one of them. Yeah. I'm slowly leaving others who works for you. And where's the next one out? So.
It tells the story of where we are.
Right.
And it tells the story. It tells three stories. Phillip always likes things in three.
Okay.
This is part of 21 years. I believe
Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and real estate.
Okay.
It tells where we are just in terms of real numbers of inventory for sale, for example.
Okay.
From there, you can start to see, and from where you see what's happened in all of 2014, because we'll paint the picture starting from January. Trend lines develop right in front of your eyes. It's like in a half a second.
Okay.
A trend line will develop both in terms of inventory and in terms of pricing. Be careful now. If you start following the trend lines, you're on the way to painting a picture of the future. And then when we add that to how culturally Miami's maturing,
Right.
do you know that Miami, the second highest concentration of banks outside of Wall Street right now is here in Miami because of our position with all of Latin America.
Right.
People have no idea that the banks on Brickell Avenue are controlling $28 billion worth of liquidity as we speak. It's a very, very powerful city just in that regard. How the technology sector is growing in Miami. Bottom line is, Phillip and I constantly are filling the Miami report with different aspects of Miami that paint a very vibrant, dynamic future that will probably add to the potential of the real estate values continuing to appreciate in value for reasons that we know, but in values that we can't even predict. when the Panama Canal, for example, opens up next summer,
Right.
and you start seeing these gigantic Panamax ships,
Yeah, the post-Panamax, right? Yeah.
right, holding 3 times the amount of cargo that
Right.
any of us have ever seen in our lives, docking at the port of Miami and unloading into these trucks that are going to go underneath that brand new tunnel,
Right.
Underneath the MacArthur
When we
Causeway.
actually built a tunnel to accommodate the commerce that will come as a result of the Panama Canal expansion. Imagine
Exactly.
the ripple effect that comes all the way here and will affect us for the entire future.
Yeah.
Now, you guys are doing the ISG Miami report. How would you see the future? And again, for the people in South Florida, because I'm sure people from all over the country will be seeing this interview, but how would you see the future of Miami 2015, 2016, and 17, I don't know, in terms of real estate?
Okay, good question, big question. It's our position, having the perspective of all the years that we've been doing this and watching our city develop and grow, that there is almost no end to how far the growth of this region can go. People look and they see our skyline and they say, oh, there's no more room to go. Quite the contrary. I think there's tremendous opportunity still here in Miami and South Florida in particular, because we haven't touched on Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, which are great markets that are very viable, that haven't really had any of the kind of activity that we're having here in Miami. So the future, as we see it, very bright, very active, and with continued growth. Who's going to be the leader?
Right.
I don't know. I'm guessing that the related companies will always continue to lead. I see people like PMG being leaders in the future. But it's a land of opportunity, and I think we're living in paradise. We're just living in paradise.
And we were talking about some numbers, Phillip and Craig, about what you saw in 2009 or 8 and 10, and then the number of properties being proposed and the ones being built. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
I just want to give it perspective.
All right.
In the last cycle, last boom, Phillip and I agree. It was measured mostly between all the condos that were built from 2005 to 2008. Between Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach, we built 36,000 condos east of Interstate 95.
Okay.
That's way too many. And yes, the bubble did burst, but once again, the bubble didn't burst just because we built a lot of condos. Remember that Lehman Brothers went out of business, and Bear Stearns went out of business, and the ISG insurance company nearly went out of business, if not for the TARP funds bailing them out. And had they gone out of business, I shudder to think what would have happened to the world economy. So it wasn't just the condo game that went a little awry. The whole world went wrong. But either way, we built 36,000 condos at a time when 100,000 condos were proposed according to the Sun Sentinel. Around that same time, in May of 2005, there was a reporter from the Miami Herald named Matt Hagerman who wrote a story about the amount of proposed condos for just Brickell Avenue in downtown Miami. 62,000 condos were proposed to be built. And, by then we had the internet.
Right.
And that article went viral. And believe me, Phillip and I got a ton of phone calls, particularly from our broker network in South America. The reality is that less than 40% of those 62,000 units got built, more like 17,500. Remember the first one, less than 36,000 out of 100.
So it's usually less than 40%
Less than
that
40%.
gets built.
Right now, the real deal.
Seems to be some kind of a formula that applies.
Okay.
The real deal just announced that there are 35,000 condos proposed to be built east of 95 between Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. Proposed.
Right.
I can tell you, to the T, there are 13,600 units currently being developed in those
Around
markets.
40%.
Less than 40%.
Right.
So you can hold on to that as kind of a strong barometer. There's a giant difference between what is proposed and what actually gets developed.
And proposed, just for example, is if somebody goes and ties up a piece of land and gets entitlements for what they can build on that land, that's considered a proposed project. There may not be a real developer, there may not be anybody to finance it, there may not even be a concept, but they're getting their maximum entitlements for the value of the land. But that doesn't mean it's getting built or even sold.
Okay. That's enough about Miami now. Now let's go back to business. To talking about business, and
we're not too passionate about Miami.
I think the three of us are very passionate.
Yes,
so the question here would be: what's the how do you see the business? I mean, in terms of, you've been involved in real estate for many, many years, and I want to hear from you guys a real failure in real estate, whether you were working with developers, you both as partners. I mean, it's not easy to find a good relationship, for 20 years, much less a partnership. So a failure, or a tough time that you went through, whether together or in business. One in particular. Tough
a tough time for us in business was, we originally started our business as three partners, and we had a very difficult time when we wound up separating from the third partner. And we had just come through another difficult cycle, not like what we just experienced, but it was still a bad economic cycle, and we had to reinvent ourselves as what we wanted our company to be, and it was a very defining moment for us. This is back at around 2000. And as we were starting to get ourselves established on our new direction, 9/11 happened.
Right.
So those were very challenging times, but coming through that.
What did you learn from that experience?
Well, the old adage is never give up. The tougher things became for us, the harder we put our nose to the grindstone and worked harder, and we went out and told our story to enough people, and we started getting new business and diversifying. And that's when we started entering into markets outside of just Miami. And it got to the point where by, I would say 2002, 2003 maybe, we were in control of over 20,000 apartments and condos to sell. Conversions, condos, new construction. So we were doing business in Las Vegas, Puerto Rico, Panama. So our game plan, which was very difficult when things were slow and we were transitioning, started to actually come to fruition. So tough times, great result, and probably gave us the fortitude to get through what we just went through in 2008, 2009, and 2010.
What about you, Craig? Tough time, your business career.
There was, I would say, in 2008, when the dark clouds of the recession appeared, Phillip and I had noticed that there were definitely two types of developer clients. We
mention a few, by the way, because you have developers that are amazing and very, very successful ones. So
I'll give you an example of a guy who really impressed the hell out of Phillip and I. This is fellow Kevin Maloney from PMG.
Right.
We were selling a project for him on Miami Beach, Collins Avenue, 50 May. The project called May. Spelled MEI, pronounced like the month of May.
Right.
We sold it out.
That's the Chinese word for inner beauty.
For inner beauty. That's what we're talking about.
Good. All right.
We sold it out. We sold it out in 06 for like $1,200 a foot. The market was good. He finished the project in May of 08. I'll never forget that because my son was graduating from college in that time. That's why I remember it so well. And it was May of 08, and very few people came to closing. So Phillip and I had to roll up our sleeves.
Very few people came to closing. Wow.
Very few. And poor Kevin was out on a limb because he had to pay off a construction loan, and he needed the closings to do that. So here everyone's defaulting. We have to resell the building. The condos are now worth half of what we sold them for, which is not nearly what's going to be required to pay off his construction loan. And yet this guy went into the building with us one day and started tearing interior design out because he didn't like the way it was finished. And here he is losing money. We know he's losing money, and yet he's not proud of the building the way it came out. It's not symbolic of his style. So he put more of his money into this building to make it right. We had other clients.
I never saw anybody do that.
Okay, all right.
We had other clients that would profess that they were the toughest guys in the wilderness, but we saw them run for the hills. So I would say the toughest thing for me was really the disappointment of guys that I really thought were tough and I trusted, weren't so tough and not trustworthy, versus guys like Kevin Maloney who showed me, when the tough get going, these guys do get tough. And they're not tough, they are resilient. They just don't ever really give up.
And their reputation meant something to them. That was a form of character that we don't see quite often enough, especially in an industry where people are always looking at the developer as the bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was a very refreshing change and standout from others that we had done business with.
And the PS to it is he's in business today and doing incredibly well. Whereas the guys that ran from the hills are out of this game. Had they stayed in there and tried to work it out, they would have been in the game and done marvelously well. So what's the lesson learned? Truly, don't ever give up. Truly. Well, those that give up, they rue the day because they not only lose the respect of their business colleagues, they have to lose a lot of self-respect when they look back. If the worst thing in life to ever live with is regret, and that's one you could avoid.
And you guys deal with a lot of real estate agents in a daily basis, literally in a daily basis, not only from Miami, nationwide in South America. And you have offices in South America. ISG has offices in Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina.
One more coming.
I know that. All right. So, what are the common problems you see with some agents? What advice would you give to those agents that are?
Oh, for me, it's information. You know, there are
Knowledge,
agents,
right?
there are agents that work for us right now that I know are not as up to speed on the constantly changing dynamic Miami that we're selling them, and it's changing quickly. So to some extent, it's understandable, but it's no longer forgivable because if you're going to compete at a high level, you've got to see the market and change prices and inventory changing constantly. So
And by the way, we're selling high-priced luxury real estate to very sophisticated people. People that can afford to spend $2, $4, $8, $10 million aren't coming to the table without some pre-knowledge of what's going on as well. They know if you're giving them bad information or you're just not knowledgeable. So if you want to compete and you want to be able to deal with people at that level, you have to be well versed.
Now, that's something that I always say with my agent symposium. I mean, without the knowledge, this is pretty much impossible to make it in this business. And I say it, if you want to become a lawyer, how many years do you go to school? If you want to become an architect, an engineer, how many years do you go to school? But if you want to become a real estate agent, how many hours do you go to school? 63 hours, right? Yeah. So there's the comparison. And the beauty of this business is that you can make literally, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you see the checks you have to make.
We write those checks.
You write the checks.
You sign them,
and
we write
it's
them.
so much money to be made in this industry if we know exactly what we're doing, if we have that knowledge. And as you said, Phillip, you're dealing with very sophisticated investors that they don't hesitate to write a $2 million check for a deposit, but you need to be at par with them, right?
I mean, you can get a real estate license without a lot of time or effort.
63 hours, yeah.
But you can't make money at it without putting in the time and the effort and the commitment
Very good
to knowing your business.
Very good point.
And that's good, a good rule of thumb for any business. But in our industry, absolutely, it's not just good to be well dressed and good looking. You got to know what you're talking about. Well, thank you.
Now, a question: what's the best real estate or business advice you've ever received?
Wow.
Or what you're thinking, maybe if you have.
I'll tell you something I learned from my mentor Tom Daly. It's really know thy competition. Whenever we
know the competition.
Know the competition.
Okay.
He used to do it almost like one of the 10 Commandments. Know thy competition.
Know the competition. Okay.
But if you work for Tom Daly, and you're selling a building here, and you have a competitive building here and a competitive building here, he wanted you to know not only how many apartments were in each building and how large they were and what they were selling for. You needed to know what was the brand of the kitchen cabinets in each building.
The details.
What about the kitchen appliances? What about the plumbing fixtures in the bathrooms? Are they offering a separate toilet and bidet, or is it just one plumbing fixture unit, which is now becoming kind of commonplace? How many parking spots per unit? And if it's only one, are they selling the other one, and how much are they selling it for? The detail that Tom would want you to know the competition was extraordinary, but he was right, because if you knew, and then a customer would walk into your office and say, and you would ask them rather, by the way, have you seen anything else in the neighborhood? And they would say, well, yeah, I just love Porsche design. Well, if you didn't know anything about Porsche design, that high-end customer that Phillip was just referring to, they're not going to buy from you because they're not going to think that you take yourself very seriously.
Great point.
They're not.
Great
if they think that you take yourself seriously enough to know everything about the business you're in, the trust that they're going to have in you just went up exponentially.
Right.
They're about to spend a lot of money with you. They need to know that you're doing business with a person with strong values, not just somebody who is attractive.
And the core team of people at ISG instinctively, whenever we talk about a new project, go right to doing the comparative analysis, investigation, charting it, and getting that information so that everybody in the company can become more knowledgeable. And that just became a very instinctive kind of way we do business.
By the way, say again to the audience who Tom Daly was and what company he built.
Tom Daly was, his history in South Florida is mostly known two ways. Mm-hmm. One, Mystic Point, which is 2,000 condos in Aventura, and Country Club Estates, a beautiful single-family home community in Aventura. He developed that on his own. Right. When he finished that, he became partners with Jorge Perez of Related. Right. And for 15 years, he's the one that got Jorge Perez into the condo business. They started with Portofino Tower down in South Beach.
Exactly, yeah.
And it became a beautiful love affair for nearly 15, 16 years until Tom passed away 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But Tom, when it came to vertical development, residential vertical, which is the condo game, right, from land acquisition to architectural design to negotiating, guaranteed maximum prices with reputable general contractors, and understanding all the changing pricing of different commodities, whether it's concrete, steel, and drywall, and all of that. Then dealing with people like Phillip and Craig on the
great marketing
side. Mm-hmm. Then dealing with the lawyers when you transition control of the building once it's finished from the developer to the condo association. There isn't anybody that had the A to Z as an expert like Tom Daly. He had the whole thing figured out. And George really relied heavily on Tom's expertise.
George, arguably one of the most successful builders.
Truly.
Very intense.
In history in South Florida.
Yeah, intense as hell and very intelligent.
That's what I hear, very intense. Can you define that intensity? Because I hear from many people that's very, very intense in a good way.
I'll give it to you from my perspective.
Okay, good.
One of the things a lot of people don't know about George, or they think they know about George, he really is kind of an art lover. Mm-hmm. He really is quite an art curator in his own right. Right. Artists really they feel their passion on an extraordinary level, an unpredictable level. This is what I've come to learn about artists at the tender age of 58. So George brings that part of his personality into real estate, and the borders transcend each other all the time. Okay. So you see a guy sometimes that, like an artist will care about how that mosaic comes out. Right. George cares about how his buildings come out. Right. And they spill over.
Okay. And he also, I've seen this happen on projects that we've worked with him on. He gets out there, he walks it, he asks the questions, he digs, he drills. He's relentless when it comes to putting a project into the marketplace or acquiring something. And we've had the good fortune to work with him in different properties. And we've seen that part of his personality come out. And when somebody's like that, they bring your game up. Right. Exactly. You're not going to come not prepared to any conversation. Never did with Tom Daly, and certainly don't do it with Jorge Perez.
What about Donald Trump? You've also worked with him in the past, right?
I did.
Donald Trump is just a genius promoter. Mm-hmm. Phillip and I didn't have a chance to work with him as closely as we did guys like Tom Daly or George in terms of getting into the nitty-gritty details. Okay. But when it comes to promoting himself as a brand, wow, he is.
He's at a light switch.
He's at another level.
And now, for the people that are watching, that are working real estate as a real estate team, what's the secret? 20 years together, and I see you guys. When was the last time you saw Phillip? Before today, Friday. And did you guys say hello today? Like you haven't seen him in 3 years. You kissed him. Is it true? Every day. No? So what's the formula?
We don't have a prenup.
It's not easy. We don't have a prenup. A prenup. There you go.
No, I think I'll take it. We have very similar DNA.
Okay.
Well, our personalities seem very different.
Okay.
I mean, Craig seems like more of the laid-back guy, and Phillip's more of the type A serious guy. I think that's how most people tend to separate us. Or I've heard people say Phillip's more the business guy and Craig's more the sales guy.
Okay.
We've heard all kinds of definitions of us over 20-some years. The truth is that I do tend to always think about how our salespeople are going to present the product that the developer's putting on the table.
Okay.
Phillip will always tend to see how this is all going to integrate from a business plan for not just the developer, but for the brokers that we work for, and then eventually how it's profitable for ISG. So he'll tend to lean that way on day one. I'll tend to lean how the salespeople are going to sell this thing on day one. Okay. But by day,
how are we going to sell it and how are we going to make money?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But by day whatever, we completely come together like this. And I think every developer client we've ever had loves the ham and egg act, if you will. The fact that we approach it from not polar opposites. We angle it in a little differently.
And by the way, we make each other laugh.
I know, all the time.
Yeah.
Every time I see you guys, you have a great time.
We went to the same campus. Any
personal routine you guys have? By the way, how many hours do you guys work a week? Because many real estate agents think that, working 20, 30 hours a week, they'll make it. How many hours do you guys work? And I know you love it, but...
I don't know that we ever really shut off. I'm serious. I mean, with electronic media today, with email and smartphones and computers, I don't think we really ever shut off. We're always responding.
He's not only 100% right.
Okay.
Let me give you the reciprocal. Okay. You have to find time to really unhook, because what we've learned, I'll teach you something about the human brain.
Okay.
The brain doesn't really move into creative mode until it stops responding. So if you don't find time to turn off these damn electronic devices we have.
And how do you do it?
I do it. My wife is a crazy athlete from Brazil, and so she has me in the gym every morning around 7 doing something.
Okay.
And that's one way I do it.
Okay.
Because when you're exercising, you have to think about what you're doing.
Right. So
I'm not thinking about answering an email or a text message. I'm thinking about yoga, whatever.
Right. Okay.
But it helps me when I'm finished. That's when I start thinking about my sales presentations, because sales presentations are very creative.
Right.
It's not, it's not. Reconciling the statement of financial position. It's a presentation to a human being, and every sales presentation I teach every one of my salespeople has to have two connections. Has to have a logical connection, meaning the buyer has to feel as though they're getting a good value for their money.
All right, so the logical connection,
and then it has to have an emotional connection.
Right.
They have to like what they're buying.
Okay.
No one ever bought a house they didn't like.
Right.
In fact, they didn't love.
Okay.
So you have to create both connections at the same time. That's what I think about, and I need some creative time.
That's a great point. So it's a logical connection and an emotional connection.
Both.
Every time you're doing a sales presentation.
You're not going to sell a home, whether it's a condo or a house, without making both.
Right.
Or even selling the services of our company. I mean, the audience may be different, but the way to get there is the same. By the way, he's much younger than I am. I can't only get to the gym 4 days.
And by the way, I'm not that much younger.
Now, if you would recommend a daily practice for the viewers, for the real estate agents, because you deal with real estate agents every single day, again, locally, nationwide, and in South American, what would you recommend for those agents that are watching today to succeed in this business?
I guess.
What would you recommend to those agents that are watching today? If they want to, because you deal with top producers that make in excess of around $1 million a year. So, what do you think is their secret? What would you recommend to the agents watching today?
I would say the secret to most of the top earners is two things. One is they all are real experts at staying on top of information.
There you go, knowledge, right?
Yeah, they're constantly at either Phillip's heels or my heels. What is that next damn my area?
They're digging.
They understand the value of it. Second thing is they pay with their own money. They pay for their own assistants. So they have administrative help that they pay for because they understand the value of prospecting for new customers all the time.
Right. So it's knowledge and investing not only time but money.
Yes.
All right.
With new contacts, networking.
Right.
You can't do it all yourself.
Right.
You just can't. You can't clone yourself. So if you hire an assistant that understands how important It is to help you network and then follow up with some older leads so that you can do what you do best, which is usually making presentations. You do 3 or 4 presentations a day, you're done.
That's a lot.
You're done. You're done. So you need somebody else to do the other stuff. What I would recommend to other people that I recommend to myself, if you've got all that in place and you still want to get better and you're in Miami, you have 2 choices, Espanol or Portuguese.
There you go. So learn a new language.
Learn a language.
There you go. Okay.
Learn a language, know how to do business with other cultures, with other people from around this very vast world that is focused on being here. You know, we're still the inexpensive bargain of the great cities of the world. When you make a clear comparison. I don't know how long that'll last. While it does, we're still a phenomenal bargain, and you need to be able to communicate to people from all over the world.
Any book that you could recommend that impacted your life?
The Art of War.
The Art of War, yeah.
Ooh, that's a very good one.
Lao Tzu, right?
Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu, there you go.
There's good insight there always.
There you go.
Another one is when I first got into business, someone recommended me Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, classic.
That's a classic. There is another one, though, that I think is worth mentioning. It's called The Road Less Traveled by a fellow named Scott Peck. And he teaches people to become, to feel to tap into their passion and become the individuals that they were really meant to be. And I recommend it highly. Because,
Now, to end the conversation, and again, thank you very much for having us today. If you would recommend one action for the real estate agents watching today, whether they're new or experienced, what action would it be? I know it's a tough question, but
for real estate agents, I don't think it's that tough a question. I really do believe there's 3 disciplines that every salesperson has to think about every day of their lives.
Okay.
If you're going to get into sales. Prospect for new customers.
There you go.
Perfect your presentations.
There you go.
And follow up. Number 3. Of the 3, if there was one that's more important than the other, in my opinion, it's prospecting. You can't have enough contacts. And Miami is becoming, Phillip touched on it a couple of times in this interview, it's becoming more and more attractive to high net worth individuals around the world all the time. With the internet, it's so much easier to prospect for contacts than it was for Phillip and I when we broke up.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so much easier.
Remember, it's cold calling back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or just really, Orlando, do you know somebody I can call?
Right.
Really, truly networking.
Kind of cold calling,
Yeah,
right? Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's one-on-one. You know, it's a very labor-intensive.
If you can't hear a no, you shouldn't be in this business.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
You take so many no's before you hear a yes, and you have to be able to pump yourself up and be willing to go out and make the next call.
Okay.
And then the other thing I would add to what Craig said is that they have to go and learn the market. Don't just accept what they hear. Don't accept hearsay. Don't accept even what you read in the newspaper. Go and learn the market. Go to the other deals. Go see the other projects. Go understand them yourself. And don't take other people's preconceived concepts. And form your own opinions, and you'll be much better at being able to talk to a prospect when you've formed a real opinion that you believe in from in here.
Phillip.
Orlando.
Thank you very much for having us.
Un placer.
Right. Thank you for coming, and you got it. You got it from 2 real experts, not only experts, more than 20 years in the industry, but very successful business people. And I hope you learned what I learned from you guys today. Again, thank you for coming and giving us the opportunity to be in the program today.
Pleasure. A pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
What a great interview we just had with Phillip and Craig from ISG Realty, the principals of the company. We learned many things today. 3 points that I want to go over because I think they are very, very, very important. Number 1 is knowledge. Knowledge is very important in our business. There are so many real estate agents competing for the same clients. And I have here in my notes something that I speak a lot in coaching. It's many agents are doing a lot of work. It's not that they are not working, but they are doing the wrong work. So it's very important that you acquire the knowledge before you go out and look for new clients. Knowledge. Number 2, I have in my notes, it's that we need to work very hard, but again, working hard at the right things. Because most agents suffer from what we call in coaching the Me Too syndrome. And what do I mean by the Me Too syndrome is that I'm sending this agent is sending postcards, Me Too. This agent is selling pre-construction, Me Too. This agent is doing some advertisement in the newspaper, Me Too. This agent is offering a special discount, on, which I don't recommend, but in a new listing, Me Too. Everybody's doing, and most people are doing exactly the same thing. So do not become do not get the syndrome of the Me Too agent. Work very hard, but work hard at the right things. And finally, Craig said something very, very, very important. Invest your own money. Something that we talk in coaching about is that this is not a job. This is not a career. This is a business, guys. This is a business. And it's important when I ask him, what do you see? Why do you think the agents that you deal with are very successful, or the agents that you deal with that make over $1 million a year? What's one of the formulas? And what did he say? They invest a lot of their money into their business. And what I say in coaching is there's a big difference between a struggling agent and the way they see money, the struggling agent, and the way top producers see money. What happens is struggling agents see the outflow of money as what? As an expense. However, top producers, listen to this one, top producers look at money, the outflow of money, as what? As an investment. So we need to invest money, time, and effort to acquire the right knowledge and do the right work. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, and I want to thank again Craig and Phillip for being here with us today. Until next session, I hope you have a very, very, very productive day.
This program is brought to you by the Muse Residences, a unique oceanfront condominium located in the prestigious neighborhood of Sunny Isles, offering only 68 one-of-a-kind residences. Each of its 49 floors consists of 1 or 2 units spanning the whole width of the tower. Each unit has complete 180-degree panoramic views of the Intracoastal or the Atlantic Ocean. Designer Carlos Otis teamed up with the world-renowned architectural firm Seeger Suarez to create one of the most visually stunning residential buildings in the Miami-Dade County. For more information, visit museresidences.com or call 305-974-0107. That is 305-974-0107.